Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Avatar
Meher Baba ki Jai. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. This is the 22nd tape of recollections by Meherwan Jessawala of his life, which was lived under the protection of the avatar of the age, Avatar Meher Baba. This is December 19th, 1994, pleasant sunny day out here at Meherzad. And as of the last session a week ago, you had been talking about
it was
1968.
1968. It was the meeting of the workers which was called by Baba on 13th October 1968, which I remember the exact date because it happened to be Eret's birthday, as also birthday of Meherji Karkaria and his wife Homai, and we were all assembled in this hall, and Baba had completed his seclusion work, and he had said that he had completed his work to 100% to his satisfaction, and that now he was ready for giving darshan, but still he required time to pick up more health. Although he was feeling quite strong, he wasn't feeling right up to the mark, so the restrictions were still on about seeing him, but the seclusion work was not there, and it wasn't that strict now. So some people would be called from outside and Baba would be seeing them, and so this meeting was there, and as I had mentioned previously, arrangements, preparations for what was to be done and how the meeting should be done was all being drafted out while I was at Meherzad earlier in the year. So those
as early as January, February.
February, yeah.
Wow.
And when after I left, also off and on, Baba would give points probably or what, and it was being continuously kept in mind, and eventually a whole thing was set up, and when we assembled here, the draft of the circular was read out, giving us all the details of how the meeting, of how the great darshan would be held next year. Baba decided that the darshan would be from 10th April to 10th June 1969. So all the details of how the thing would be done. The place was Guru Prasad. Baba decided that it should be Guru Prasad, and also that Baba would not like to give his darshan to the outside world, as it were, and that he would only consider giving darshan only to his lovers for the present. And then when his manifestation took place, then it would be the time for the public to have his darshan, non-stop, as it were. So this was not the time for public darshan, as Baba gave it out.
Is that different from, say, the 65 darshan? Was that restriction there at 65?
Well, mostly it was there. The public was not invited, even in 65. It was mostly Baba's lovers from different parts of India who had come. It was the same in 1962 East-West, but only one day Baba kept a public darshan at the end of the East-West gathering on the fourth day. So apart from that, there were no public darshans. So it was all for his lovers mostly. Of course, some outside people may have crept in, but it was not announced publicly. And the same would be the case for this. So as I said before, as we entered, we were told that Baba was still having restrictions and that we should not broach any personal matters to him. This carpet was there, as I said, and we were told to avoid treading upon it, to not to even approach Baba, leave alone touching him. So Baba was still under some restrictions, and all these instructions were there. And the only exception, as I said, was Meherji, whose birthday it was. And so towards the end of the meeting, Baba then calls him and asks him to kiss his hand, and then just quickly asks him how everything was at home and how his business was progressing. So, despite all the restrictions to reveal all this, So quietly Meherji was saying that Baba, for the first time, his business had turned the corner, and that now he sees light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. And Baba said his nazar would be on his business, and that he will prosper. Have no fear. And it proved to be so, because then later on I was associated with Meherji, and I saw how beautifully it progressed, his business. So,
had it not been prosperous before then?
You see, what happened was that Meherji's association with Baba was of very old. He was with Baba in Meherabad in the early 20s, when there was this Prema Ashram and the boys' school and all. And Meherji was one of the teachers and he was one of the Mandali and was given the job of teaching to the children. And he was very happy with Baba there. Of course, the story goes before that also, that Meherji had no idea who Baba was, and Chanji tricked him into coming to Meherabad one day for a picnic, with the other Dada Chanji family, with whom he is distantly related. So his exams were near and he was reluctant, but somehow Chanji persuaded him and he came. And he just got hooked onto Baba, just by that single little visit. And then Baba asked him what he was doing, and he said, I am studying for my chemical engineering or whatever it was. And Baba said, well, if you don't get through your exams, would you like to come and be with me here and teach my boys? And Meherji wasn't very happy with the idea, but he was quite sure of passing. But he said that in the first time in his career, he failed in his exam. Some key of Baba probably. And he then had no alternative but to come and be with Baba, and Baba was happy to have him. And then he was very happy, and then he became so close to Baba that he knew that this was his place. And just when this happened, his father one day suddenly appeared at Meherabad with 2 or 3 other priests. He was from the priestly family. So his father came, and he had great respect for Baba, but he said that, Baba, he's my eldest son and there's nobody to look after me. I'm not so well to do. He used to earn very little in his priestly profession. So I would like you to send him back to me, and so that he could earn and support me. So Baba then told Meherji that he should go, and Meherji was very upset about it. Just when his mind was set upon Baba, now it was time for him to get out. So Baba says, do what I say. You will be more close to me if you obey me rather than stay near me and disobey me. So go as I want you to do now, and you will prosper and you will be happy. So he sent him off, and then it was a long story of how he went to Persia, Iran, and just as a small petty clerk to an import-export, a person who was doing import-export business on a large scale. So he was employed there as a small-time clerk. There he learned the secrets of the trade, and then one day he just resigned his job and started doing his own little business. And Baba's grace was such that he began to prosper. And he prospered so much that he became one of the wealthiest merchants there in Bandar Abbas, which was where he was stationed. It was a port in Iran. So he did very well. And then he would come often to India. Whenever he would come, he would pay a visit to Baba. He would be allowed to come and see Baba. And Baba would make inquiries and all. And Meherji says that in Iran they would become jealous of him. And once they tried to get him into trouble with the government, but he was able to turn tables on his enemies and he became all the more prominent. Yeah. And then the war came along, and in the war other people's business died down, but his business flourished. Yeah. And then there was Chota Baba who had left Baba and was in Iran, and
one of the Premashram boys.
Yes, yes, who had the experience of the sixth plane, as Baba told the disciples. And then he was without employment, but he was a very straightforward and sort of very introvert person. And Meherji wanted Chota Baba very much to join his business and help him. So he took Baba's permission and then asked Chota Baba to come and join him, but he was reluctant. But somehow it so happened that Chota Baba was also somehow compelled to come and work with him. And he was a great asset to Meherji, because he was 100% honest, diligent, and very straightforward. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Chota Baba?
No. But my mother met him. It was way back when Chota Baba was given that experience of the sixth plane, and my mother was visiting with her parents at Akbar Press, and Baba suddenly called for her. And my mother says that Baba took her and showed Chota Baba. He was in that dazed state, and my mother was amazed to see this boy lying there with a great radiance on his face, and his face resembled Baba so much. Yeah. So that is all. But I wasn't even born then. Yeah. So the question of seeing him doesn't arise.
But he never came back to India later years?
No, never. Baba was very sad when he left. Baba, it seems, tried to persuade him not to leave. That Baba himself would send him when the time came. But somehow he wouldn't stay on. His time had come, probably. So I suppose with all of us, it's what is fated for us, the number of days to be with him, that much and no more. We need all that savings in our account, to be able to be with him. The samskarik account. Yes, so that was Meherji's business, and it flourished. And of course, on one of his visits, he came over to India, and Baba was at that time in Karachi. And Meherji says that there was some, and he wanted to go and see Baba. So he wrote asking for permission. And before the reply could come, he was here. And prosperous businessman, but just in a very casual way, as if he didn't know anything. And the Meherji gets so annoyed with him. He says, "You're so stupid too. Stars have no influence on you. It is I who control your destiny after that. So what need you have to worry about anything? Immediately go and send a telegram cancelling all your previous advices and continue with your business. When I call you back, then will be the time that you must come back, selling off everything. This is not the time." So immediately Meherji was made to send another telegram, and it was stopped in good time. And it was just as good, because soon after that the prices began to tell everything and come back. Yeah. So then he had to do that, and he came back to Bombay, and then Baba Radhachandji in his business. So Meherji worked with Nariman for quite a few years, and it was a very good thing that happened, because although his association with Nariman was not very pleasant, because there were frictions in the partnership, but it gave him all the time to be with Baba. Yeah, because he was almost like a sleeping partner in the business.
Oh.
Yeah. So Baba, it seems, wanted to give him time, to be with him. So all the while he would be called from Bombay to be with Baba with some excuse or the other. And eventually then they couldn't get on well together. So then Baba allowed them to separate. And then Meherji came and shifted to Pune and settled down there. And when he was there, he was retired. He had all the money he wanted for his life, for his old generations to come. But being a very active man, then he didn't know what to do with his time. So he asked Baba permission to do some business. So Baba said, "Go ahead," just like a sort of pastime for him. So then he bought a piece of land in Pune, and so it was an old stone quarry. So when they all went, then Baba was taken to see the land, and Baba was very happy. He says, "This is almost like raw gold that you have bought. Keep it." But the others were not happy. There was a big hole in the middle, being a stone quarry, And they said that you have been fooled by people to buy this land. And he was very upset, because on the one hand Baba is saying this, and other people, his friends and others, saying that he was totally fooled or something. But he kept to what Baba had said, fortunately. And it so happened that after that he thought of opening a small handmade paper factory, a sort of innovative thing. So, and a handmade filter paper factory.
Handmade filter paper?
Yeah. So it was...
What is the demand for handmade filter paper?
The demand for filter paper was there in India. But the filter paper being not not an item of mass consumption, so there were no big firms who were producing filter paper. So all the filter paper was being imported from outside. So being a handmade unit, he could manufacture small quantities economically. Yeah, so that's how he started this little business. And there were lots of problems in the beginning, because after buying the land, he came to know that it was in the green belt and no industry could be started there. So he was stuck with it. And so for years it was going on. He was trying to get it freed from that reservation. And daily he would come to Baba at Guru Prasad and bemoan his fate. And Baba would say, "Don't have worry, my nazar is there. I tell you, it will all be well. You be with me here." And it went on and on and on. And eventually the reservation was cleared and he could proceed with his factory. So for the ground breaking also Baba visited the place, and he was the one who did the ground digging. And when the factory was ready, Baba went to do the opening of the factory also. So yeah.
Oh, so this is a business that Baba was really involved with from...
So it was a Baba venture, as it were. With Meherji, as it were, being taken along. And he was very hesitant at each step, not knowing whether he was doing the right thing, and Baba encouraging him to go on and on. So then there were these usual teething troubles. He had no experience whatsoever in paper making. So fortunately there were some friends who helped him. There was a good person in the Handmade Paper Institute of the government who was a great help to him to get the factory erected and the machinery and all that, and also helped him to start producing. And but there was great resistance, as with any product, to begin with. But somehow gradually it began to take hold of people's fancy, and his paper started to sell. And at this meeting, when Baba asked him how he was doing, he says, "Baba, I feel I've just turned the corner." Yeah. And for the first time his concern had made a little profit. And of course he had to struggle very hard. His pastime business was a whole-time business for him. And he was neck-deep in trouble at one time. But somehow he did well, and he was doing well at this time. So Baba says, "Go ahead now and you will surely prosper. My nazar is on your business, on you." So that was the time Baba told him that. Yeah. So, and then what happened was that, to digress a little further, after Baba dropped his body the following year, Meherji used to come to us quite often, and he was quite fond of me, and would very often ask me to come and join his business. So I was reluctant because Baba had asked me to take up this job, and I was going on with my job in the insurance company, as I had mentioned earlier. So Meherji wasn't very insistent, but after Baba passed away, then he again approached me and said, "Please come and join me." And the thing that really prompted me was that he wanted to go on a tour of the states along with Adi.
Oh, I remember that time. That was like 1972 or 71 or something.
71.
Yeah.
70 or
maybe that was 70.
70 or 71, yeah. 71, I think. So, or 70, I'm not sure. So he says that, "Look, I have nobody to look after my business. Won't you come? It will be doing Baba's work only and all that." And somehow he wrangled me into it. So I came and asked Diaries, and they said, "Okay, you may join." So then I just reluctantly joined the concern.
quit your job.
Yeah, quit my job and joined him as a partner in this business. And I was in the insurance company for almost 18 years, and thereafter for another 18 years I was with Meherji. So it was just beginning to come up, and I then worked very hard there, and we made the business flourish by our efforts. And of course Baba's nazar was there, and the demand became so great that eventually we thought about automation. So after Meherji was rather conservative about this, but I convinced him that if we had to remain in business, we had to expand. And so we got a plant made, which was another experiment, because nobody ever could make a paper plant without experience. It's a very complicated thing. And we had no end to troubles getting that machine started. Scraps of paper would come out instead of rolls. Yeah, and debts were piling up, and really we had a difficult time. But eventually, somehow by Baba's grace, it succeeded, and it's still running.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it profitable once that?
Yeah, once it started, then there was great demand for the paper. And we had, from one ship, we had to start a second, and then 3 ships. So night and day we were working at it. And another interesting thing was that when Meherji started the factory, just then the floods took place in Pune. So Pune was without water for quite a long time.
Oh, this was back in like 61?
In 61 or 62. So a paper factory without water, you can imagine. So Meherji was again in the soup. So somebody suggested to him, why don't you go in for a bore well? So he got this boring rig, and the man said, have you got some diviner have you located the place? So he says, oh, I have a diviner who divines my things. So he just said, he tells me all this later. He said, I just took Baba's name, thought of him, and went to a corner of my property and said, you dig here. So that man says, are you sure you want me to dig here? It's going to cost you some money. He says, yes, go ahead. And he says, within 20 feet they struck water, huge gushing water. So they went down, of course, further 100 feet or so, but there was ample water in that bore. So much that his whole paper factory was able to run on that water.
Just in the bore well?
Yeah, and give water to people who were in need also. So such was Baba's nazar all the while. And mind you, I remember later that bore was not sufficient because of the automation and all that. So I thought of taking some other site for bore. So I got this geological survey people to come. They had these machines to locate water sources. So I was with him all the while he was surveying the property, and he was marking spots where there was good concentration. And the place where the bore was struck, he says, here is the maximum concentration of water. So how Baba guided him. Yeah.
It's interesting contrast. Many years earlier he went to see an astrologer, but now when this came up,
So that was how it. All right, so we'll continue. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Okay, resuming after tea here.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was talking about Meherji's business and how it was prospering. And as I said, whatever new venture we took up, although there was initially a lot of problems and we had to struggle quite a bit, somehow we always surfaced and then made good, and there was more and more progress in the business. Now, in the filter business, as I said, we were doing handmade in the early stages. So in handmade, there were two varieties which we had, and that was paper and pads for filtering. And of course, the paper was transferred to the automatic plant, and then we had all the problems of retrenchment of labor, because it was a very highly labor intensive business being handmade, and all the handmade process was shifted to the machine, so a lot of labor had to be given compensation, and we were short of funds and other things were there, but somehow Baba worked it out for us. And then the pad part of it was still being handmade, the thick pads, and eventually we thought of going in for automation even for the pads. And in one of his trips to the United States, Meherji came across a very big businessman who was having an automatic plant for filter pads, and he was wanting to dispose of his old plant because he was going in for a bigger one. And he wanted to scrap the plant, not to give it to anybody. But some Baba lovers like Anna Rosa and Ned Foot and others interceded, and somehow that man agreed to part with the plant. And Meherji got it for a song, as it were. Yeah. But of course, again, we were hard up with funds, and then despite getting a very good offer, and again there were these teething troubles, and to start the plant was a big job, and interest charges were piling up, and we were in deep trouble again. But again, by Baba's grace, the plant began to function. I must say, Jose, one of Baba's lovers, he was in the society at that time, and he kindly consented to come and start the plant for us.
He knew about it?
He was the one who dismantled the plant there, and had sent it over here, but we couldn't get it going again. It was all in parts, and we didn't know which part was where. And he came and set it up in a couple of weeks, and it started to run. And thereafter we could produce such good quality stuff that there was great demand for our product. Yeah. Although initially we couldn't get the correct specifications, being there was a difference between handmade and machine made. But all that we could get over, and some secrets of the making on the machine were given to us by the original owner. Somehow he just parted with those secrets, which was not in the deal, and then we could do very well. So much so that it is still a monopoly product in this country, and it's flourishing. Later on, I of course dissociated from the whole thing and came over to Meherazad, and now Meherji's son-in-law runs the business, but it's doing fine.
So it was very profitable for Meherji
and the family. Yeah. But of course, Meherji would send regularly to the trust also, and so also his son-in-law does it. Yeah. They remember that it's a Baba venture. So that's how this business went on.
So it's one of those businesses that Baba really was in.
Yeah, I was
thoroughly
into it. Yeah, because Baba obeyed. Because Meherji obeyed Baba's orders, and so Baba saw to all the details of his life. Yeah. his family, his business, everything. So that was how it was. So now I think we've digressed too far off, and we should come back to where we were. This was just
from Merji's birthday.
yeah, and that meeting was coming to an end. all the points in the circular were read out. Some discussions did take place about the pros and cons of certain things, and eventually the meeting was over and we were asked to disperse. So this was the meeting that took place on 13th of October, many months after I left Meherazad. So now we must backtrack to Meherazad again, because I haven't yet completed my stay there. So yes, Baba, as I said, was in deep seclusion. As I mentioned earlier, he started this new phase of working intensely for a few hours in the hall. So Baba would come early in the morning and be closeted in this very hall, and at that time we had to remain absolutely quiet and not make the least noise. So Baba, the work he was doing in seclusion was so intense that was the time Baba said that he had great difficulty not about the actual work itself, because that he was doing as usual, but the difficulty now was to maintain the link with the gross. So he would tell us during the day that the link with the gross world and this gross body was almost like a thread-like link, and he had to, and the strain for him was to maintain this link and prevent it from snapping. That means his body would drop. So that was the most strenuous part of his seclusion, he said to us. And to maintain this link, then Baba said that he had to start pounding his right thigh with his fist. So all the while he was hitting his thigh with his fist and hitting it very hard. So so much so that this whole part of his muscle had become very stiff and hard. And Baba would ask me to massage his feet later, and he would ask me to feel that part, and it was really like a log of wood. So hard it had become by this constant pounding on it. Yeah. And it was not slowly that he used to do it, quite a bit of force. Yeah. So to maintain the link, as it were, he said. Yeah. So his frail body and this extra, what should we say, suffering that he had to go, physical suffering, yeah. And another thing he would tell us was that sometimes the work would be so intense that Baba said he would feel faint at times. So Baba would ask Bhav to tie a sash around his waist and tie it around the chair to prevent him from falling down. Yeah, it was so intense. So this could give us an idea of what Baba must be doing in those hours. It was tremendous work that was being done. Because soon after the work would be over and we would be called, and then we could see the physical part of it. And his body was so fatigued and tired out, as if all energy had been drained from him. He would be all covered with sweat, and very tired. And then after that also the usual prayer sessions would be there. And of course, one or two of the mandali would support Baba to stand up and take part in the prayers and the bowing down to the mandali. Yes, all that was always there. So, because of this intensity of the seclusion, Baba wanted absolute quiet. So that's why that watchman was given the duty right out, or right in the distance, near that mango tree on the approach road, far away from the gate, so that any visitor or any vehicle, anything intruding was stopped well outside the limits and would not disturb Baba during seclusion. So mostly Baidul would be there, or to relieve him, Aloba would be there or for watch. And they had to be very alert so that no disturbance took place. And when I was here, of course, I was keeping watch outside the hall to see that nobody walked past the entrance and created any disturbance. So everybody was quite tense and careful, yeah.
Watchfulness was at its height.
Yeah, because of the intensity of his work. It was tremendous.
Had you seen Baba look exhausted in that particular way before the seclusion, or was this
No,
new?
that was a new thing for me. And the mandali must have seen it in earlier days. It had happened once previously also when Baba was in seclusion in Mahabaleshwar, which I had mentioned earlier. A hut was built in a room, and Baba was in seclusion there. And at that time also they said that Baba was extremely fatigued with that seclusion work. But now Baba's physical condition also was deteriorating because of the constant work and the constant pressure of work. And so it was more and more of a strain for him. Yeah. So this was a very intense phase of his seclusion that was going on. And then another thing that of interest was that a few days before Baba's birthday, Baba had given out a circular that this intense phase of his seclusion would end on his birthday, 25th March 1968. But that was a few months before that circular had been given out. But a few days before the seclusion, Baba gave out another message that his seclusion would have to be extended up to 25th March 1968. And then Baba gave out a new thing, that soon after that date, something great would happen that has never happened before and will never happen hereafter. So this message was given out a few days before Baba's birthday. So then the seclusion was being extended. Now it so happened that a few days later, Baba one day was in the hall and he calls Erich and says that I want a little change in the message that I have given, and the change in the dates. So Erich took down Baba's message that he again extended the seclusion to some further date. So Erich wrote it down as usual, and he said that also something great that was to happen soon after 25th March would now happen soon after this date which he gave, So Erich wrote that down. He then prepared a circular. Baba said, send a circular. So he read it out to Baba. Baba says, yes, it's all right, send it off. So it was sent to Adi's office. A couple of days later, Baba again is here in the morning and tells Dheeraj, I want to change the date again. So then he gave some other date, another little extension of a few days. So before that circular could be printed, so Dheeraj sends a man post haste to Adi's office to stop getting that printed and incorporate the change in the dates. And of course the rest is all the same, the extension of the seclusion period and the time for the great event to occur. Then another few days go by, still before the birthday, mind you. And again Baba one day calls him and says, I want another change in the date. So this time Dheeraj was a bit exasperated. Baba says, now make it 21st May 1968. So Dheeraj took it down and says, Baba, is this final or I should expect another change very soon? So Baba then looked very seriously at him and says, no further change. He spelled out N-O, no, and says, no further change. Then I was sitting near him and pressing his feet there. So he nudges me and says, speak out loudly, no, 7 times. Very emphatically tells me. So I start shouting, no, 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 and I lose count of the time, the number of repetitions. And I think I just shouted 6 times. And Baba was counting on his finger. And he says, I said 7 times and you just said it 6 times? Now repeat it all over again. So another shouting, and loudly, I wanted more loud than that. So I started to shout, no, no, no. Dheeraj is hearing all this, quite unperturbed. And this time I made sure that I counted on my fingers not to lose count, And so that 7th time I shouted no all the more loudly. And Baba says, that's final. It's sealed. Stamped, sealed and delivered. Send the message. So then Dheeraj sent the man again, and that was the date that was given out, and there was no further change after that. So the circular came out that this Baba's seclusion was being extended up to 21st May, which would mean that Baba would be in seclusion when he visited Guru Prasad. So, as usual, the people in Pune were alerted about it. So that comes later, of course, but this incident happened. And then...
These dramas, they sound so funny.
Yeah. But then the more significant thing what happened was that that very afternoon a very peculiar incident occurred. The day Baba changed this date, the final date, that a big, huge monkey suddenly appeared in Meherazad garden. Big black-faced monkey. And started jumping all over the place. And after jumping on those big trees, it made a leap on the roof and came crashing down from the first floor roof onto Baba's on the roof of Baba's bedroom, and broke many of those tiles, and there was chaos and confusion all over Meherazad. First they thought they would not take cognizance of the monkey and let it go away, but it was creating so much damage that eventually all the boys were called with big sticks, and they started to shoo it and it would jump from one place to the other and keep roaming round and round, doing lots of damage there. And eventually somehow they were able to drive it away. So next day Baba comes and says, see, it's quite significant. And Hiraj was looking quite glum about it. Baba, what's the significance about this monkey business? So he says, it happened on the day that I wanted the extension, and so it has great significance. And later that year we heard, the Irani's calendar starts from 21st March. And they have these signs of the opening day. So just like the Chinese calendar, it's the year of the dog or the year of the fish. So this time in the Irani calendar, it was the new year was riding a monkey. Yeah, so see the coincidence. But it was found out later, of course. So there must be some significance about it. But Hiraj wasn't very happy about all these coincidences.
He's never been a fan of that kind of thing.
Yeah. He was at least happy that it was the final thing and there was no further rushing about and changing the circulars.
Was there a certain, Baba would make, issue circulars about the breaking of his silence and this sort of thing, and had done so many times in the past, without it ever seeming to have happened.
Nothing.
How would you yourself feel when these things would come out?
Nothing. We just felt absolutely nothing about it. We didn't pay any attention to it. Our focus was so much on him that the day would come and pass by and nobody would pay attention to it. I don't know of the outside world, but really just no thought would occur that why did this not happen, or what was it all about. Nothing. It just passed over us. His grace probably, I suppose, but we never gave much thought to it. Yeah. And in fact, when this 21st May came and passed, and there was no big incident, but still many people, even the outsiders, they were saying that, well, Baba's seclusion is over, now can we have his darshan? They didn't mention about the big incident that Baba said would happen soon after 21st May. And even their attention was to have darshan of Baba.
Right.
Yeah. Even outsiders. Yeah. So that's how it was, His authority was there. So whatever he might have meant by the incident, we haven't given any thought to that. And it will happen in its own time. As Baba said, his words never go in vain. Only thing is that we don't understand the time significance and the real significance of what he's saying. But eventually it all unfolds. So probably the world might be in store for a great incident, which we don't know. Anyway, so this was so far as the great incident and his seclusion work was concerned. Then it was time for Baba's birthday. As usual, the servants were doing the decorations and all that. And in the early morning, we gathered in the hall, and Baba had sent a special message to be read out by all of us gathered here. I'll just read that out because I happened to come across it. Yeah. So on 25th February, when we gathered in the hall, Baba had sent instructions that Hiraj had to read out loud, "O God, help Baba to accomplish his work on 21st May 1968. Yeah. So we all shouted like that. and that was the message for that day. I mean, that was to be shouted out loud, and then the usual shouting Avatar Mehr Baba Ki Jai 7 times as usual, which was done in the previous years. Thereafter the prayers and the usual thing. But this was an additional thing that Baba wanted us to ask help from God. Yeah, on his birthday. So that was one thing. And then another message, yes, another message was given out by Baba, and it was a very profound message that he gave out. And it read like this: on this, my apparent physical birthday, I send my homage and obeisance to my lovers who live for me and would, if ordered, die for me. Yeah. So it was quite a profound message that Baba gave.
And that was the last message he gave for a birthday in which he was physically in the body.
That's right, yeah. Yes, thereafter there was another message.
Another birthday
message which was prepared and given by him before he passed away.
Right.
So there was one more message.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was given out on after Baba passed away. Yeah. So that was there. Yeah. So.
But that was in fact his last birthday in the body.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Then another thing that happened was that before his birthday, Adi Jr. had been called from England, and he was here at Meherazad too. When I was here, he had come along. And at that time, Baba wanted a Qawwali program to be done here. So Gajwani was contacted in Bombay, and that he should arrange for a Qawwal and arrange for the financial part of it also, which Gajwani was very happy to do. And Baba's favorite Qawwal was that one from Jaipur known as Siddiq Qawwal. So the frantic telegrams and other modes of communication were resorted to contact this man, and eventually he was contacted and he agreed to come over. So sometime before his birthday, this Qawwali program took place, and Baba had called Nariman Jimmy and a few Baba lovers, few close Baba people from Nagar to be present during that program. And Adi Jr. was in England for quite a few years, so he also enjoyed the program thoroughly in Baba's presence. Any Qawwali program, a good Qawwal could give a very, very heart-satisfying performance. But before Baba, it would be something very special. So we all enjoyed it, and Baba was in great mood.
So this happened then?
Yes.
In 1968?
That's right.
In this very hall?
In this very hall, yeah.
By his name is
Siddiq Qawwal. Siddiq Qawwal. Or they used to call him Jaipuri Qawwal. He was from Jaipur. And Baba liked his rendering and the verses that he chose. So Baba was very happy with his singing. And he sang all morning, and everybody was happy. I was sitting at the back. Baba beckoned to me, come here and start pressing my feet during the program, because it was hurting him to sit for a long time. So I remember that also. Yeah. And it was a nice program. Then what other things happened at that time was, before I came, then a little untoward incident occurred. Baba would work with Kekobad. Kekobad would be in the room adjoining this hall. So, for some part of the day, Baba would be with Kekobad and work with him behind closed doors. Baba would do some work with him, and this would be going on. And one day he slipped in the bathroom or somewhere and fell heavily, and he fractured his hip joint or something. And Baba was very upset because this would come in the way of his work. And so Hirach and all the Mandli rushed about and tried to get Kekobad fixed up quickly so that he would be again somewhat fit enough to assist Baba in his seclusion work. So that was an unfortunate thing that happened. And when I came, Kekobad was still not able to walk, and he would be in the wheelchair and all that. So to attend upon him, Dr. Alu was called to stay at Meherazad. So she was lucky to come and stay with Baba. So she would be kept in that room there, the small room at the end of the veranda of that cottage. And she would be available for attending on Kekobad.
Did Kaikabad ever say that you know of what Baba would do during that work with him? I mean, to his awareness?
I think Baba would be bowing down to him, and he would be repeating the name of our Mazda or something. Sometimes we could hear him repeat this, but we don't know exactly, and we never asked him what would happen. And he was given the duty of repeating Baba's name all day long, and he would repeat Baba's name several thousand times. So that was his duty. And
so he was a character who wasn't much a part of the social life.
Not mixing much, and would be busy all day with whatever work